When I first arrived at Messmer, we were still a very small school. It was 1991. We were still recovering, if you will, from the potential or almost closing of Messmer back in 1984.
Being a student here in the late 80s, early 90s was I would say one of those unique times in Messmer history.
I think we were one of the smallest classes. My class had maybe 40 students. And the freshman class, this is what I remember mostly, that you could tell that it was constantly building and growing, was each class put on maybe 20 students each year.
I can just remember that first day of school and Brother Bob is downstairs. He walks into the gym. It was noisy at first and it gets quiet. Everyone is quiet, starting with the seniors to the juniors to us freshmen, and we couldn't understand why. And I could just remember that day how much of an impact he had on the students and really the seniors before me. And so what happened in that day is I learned a lot about tradition. I learned a lot about the history of the school, and it also put a little bit of fear in us freshmen because we knew we had to live up to an expectation.
And some of the things that were going on at that time was the big fight for school choice.
You know, it was groundbreaking that Messmer said we should be in choice. We're an important option for kids.
If Polly Williams is the mother of school choice, and Brother Bob is the godfather.
When we started out, we were truly pioneers, and Bob had this vision, and he just went out and tenacity and did it. He just had this message and this burning desire to work with these inner city students.
And one of the things that characterized the efforts here was a fairly united coalition that hung together, people whose political views kind of crossed a broad spectrum.
I mean, Messmer was ground zero for school choice. Press conferences were held here. Demonstrations started here and went outward.
Educational sessions to bring other school leaders in and talk about what was going on. Bob and Messmer were always willing to host us, and it taught people a lot about the reasons that parents should have more options, because Messmer is such a dynamite school, and it was so visible to people walking in the door.
Bob had a job description that was vast, beyond Messmer, into the community, talking to people about how they needed to understand the challenges and what they could do about it. But he always put first things first.
His relationship with children, with their parents, in its kindness and its warmth and its tenderness, and then the contrast of that with Brother Bob as the warrior who stands up and speaks out and says the truth to people.
We're talking about giving a parent who is poor the ability to choose whatever school they want their child to attend. And the other part of that is, if the public schools were doing their job, many of those parents would choose to send their kid to the public school.
He took it to a national level. I mean, he was tenacious. He never wavered. He took on Democrats, Republicans, and anyone else.
He took a definite stand for, and I admire him for this, that education is more important than politics.
I remember he coordinated a trip to the White House, where he took a group of parents, and I was among those parents, to talk about the importance of this new initiative.
I was in the Oval Office and with President George H.W. Bush, and I was out there as governor. And who walks in but Brother Bob in the Oval Office? And everybody got up, everybody knew him, and everybody says, Brother Bob Smith, how are you? The President of the United States knew who Brother Bob Smith was.
It was amazing. On one day, he may have a conversation with a governor or head of state or even the President of the United States, and then the next day, the very next day, have a conversation with a student as to how his math test went the previous day and challenging that student to do better.
He's somebody that's completely focused on producing great education. He was a key player and is a key player in the school choice movement, but he also, his most important focus, his overwhelming focus, was on what was produced at Messmer High School.
It was really driven out of sense of compassion, a sense of commitment to the individual lives that were served by Messmer.
I think without him, I don't know that choice would be the success it is today. I think he is the key factor in choice.
In my position here at Bradley, I have the opportunity, and it really is an opportunity, to attend meetings and conferences around the country that include people who are keenly interested in the school reform movement, and particularly the school choice movement and parental options. Bob appears at many of those. He's known nationally as a leader of the movement.
The voucher system has kept young people, and as they grow up in the city of Milwaukee and not fleeing the city to go to the suburbs to school. So consequently, we have a vibrant charter, choice, and public school system in the city of Milwaukee.
Messmer became, and in many ways still is, a showcase for the private schools and the voucher movement because it deserved to be.
Here's a school operating on half of the budget of the public schools, achieving at or above public school levels.
Another characteristic of Brother Bob's of finding and understanding the right thing to do and then committing to it and then finding out how to get it done.
I received a call from Dan McKinley. Dan stated that there is an area, Catholic urban grade school, that is on the verge of closure. It's a school that has about 250 students enrolled. Majority of the students are not parish members, and the school is on the brink of closure. What can Messmer do to help? So I left that conversation. I went down to Bob's office and shared with him the conversation that I just had with Dan McKinley. And Bob's immediate response was, Messmer will help, Messmer will step in, Messmer can facilitate and administer this school.
I can remember sitting in this room in the board meetings, and Bob would come in and tell us, I've got an idea. And we'd always cringe because we didn't know what the idea was going to be. Why don't we open a grade school?
So from that moment forward, Messmer became involved in the administration of Blessed Trinity, which became Messmer Preparatory Catholic School. Those students were served. Those students were educated. We moved the campus from the Blessed Trinity location to the current Messmer Prep location. The school grew to over 450 students, but it was that yes that Bob responded to.
But yeah, you're right. He made the commitment first, knowing it was the right thing to do, and then everybody tried to figure out how to make it happen.